When most people think about fantasy movies, they normally think of movies like Lord of the Rings or shows like Game of Thrones. But what if I told you a failed attempt at an adaptation of Lord of the Rings ended up becoming a cultural phenomena all on its own? That's right. Today, we're going to talk about one of the coolest movies ever made. Today, we're going to talk about
Excalibur.
We'll go through the background of this movie and how it got made, give a thorough summary because holy shit is there a lot to talk about. We'll talk about a few themes and then the cultural impact that Excalibur made on the genre as a whole. Director, co-writer, and producer John Boorman wanted to make a film adaptation of The Legend of Merlin. Boorman was renowned in the industry for projects such as Point Blank in 1967, Hell in the Pacific in 1968, and The Exorcist II in 1977. He tried to shop around a 3-hour script that he wrote with his writing partner, Rosbo Pallenberg. It was rejected at almost every turn with the criticism that it would be far too costly to create. Instead, Boorman was actually offered the opportunity to adapt J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. After attempting to make the adaptation, the backer for the project, United Artists, suffered severe financial setbacks and ended up canning the project, which led to an animated version being done by Ralph Bakshi. With all of the sets in place and the project in mind, he decided to do it himself. The unproduced Excalibur film was shot entirely on location in Ireland and in studios in Ireland. Boorman utilized some of the sets that were intended for his adaptation of Lord of the Rings in the film since he had them ready to go. It employed Irish actors and crew, and has been acknowledged as one of the most important films in Irish filmmaking history. See, Irish people don't just drink, get angry, and do jigs, they can make cool movies too. I can only say that because I'm Irish. Merlin the Wizard serves a prophesized king known as Uther Pendragon. Using his powers, Merlin summons the Lady of the Lake to produce the magical mythical sword known as Excalibur. And it seems like peace is now spreading across the land. At a feast to celebrate the newly unified country, and their newfound king, Uther, becomes infatuated with the Duke of Cornwall's wife, Igraine, who just happens to be the coolest dancer on this side of Camelot. I mean, seriously, look at this. Pretty impressive stuff. Despite his initial hesitation, Merlin agrees to help Uther seduce Igraine in exchange for the rights to their future child. He does this by transforming Uther into the Duke of Cornwall. This impersonation tricks Igraine into sleeping with him. Quick side note, the queen's daughter, Morgana, is just kind of like sitting there and watching the entire deal, quote unquote. Pretty traumatic stuff. Definitely won't mess her up for later in the movie, I'm sure. Igraine gives birth to Arthur. Then, shortly after, Merlin, being the dad that stepped up, takes the boy away. Meanwhile, Uther is ambushed by the Duke of Cornwall's remaining men and is fatally wounded. Before dying, Uther thrusts Excalibur into a stone nearby. Merlin then declares, "He who pulls the sword from the stone shall be king." Years later, as a grown man, Arthur becomes a squire for his adopted brother named Kay. One day, they're in a village and see Leondegrance, played by Patrick Stewart, attempt and fail to pull the sword from the stone. Arthur soon realizes that he forgot Kay's sword and needs to go find a new one. Soon thereafter, he stumbles upon the sword in the stone and pulls it with ease, therefore proving that he is the rightful heir to Uther and the true king of the land. Leondegrance pledges his allegiance to Arthur immediately, but Uriens and the other knights disagree due to Arthur being a bastard. Fights break out and Arthur runs away into the woods. Meanwhile, Merlin awaits him and provides him with counsel that he will be a naturally good king if he trusts his instincts. Arthur runs back to Leondegrance's aid and helps him defend his castle from the knights that are attacking him. He is ultimately able to unite the knights as one after asking Uriens to knight him and pledge his loyalty to the cause. That night, there is another huge feast to celebrate the unifying of the land after so many years. During the feast, Arthur realizes that Leondegrance's daughter, Guinevere, is quite the looker, and he admits that he has fallen in love with her upon first sight. Merlin cautions Arthur and says that She will fall in love with him, but also fall in love with someone else and break his heart, which is a threat to the kingdom and the land. Arthur ignores him because he's in love, and because she gave him a cookie. No joke. More years later, Arthur almost loses in a duel against a knight named Lancelot, and is only able to eke out victory by calling upon the power of Excalibur, which ends up breaking the sword in half. The Lady of the Lake ultimately repairs the sword, and Lancelot swears his loyalty to Arthur after being bested. Now that the land is in peacetime, Arthur creates the Knights of the Round Table and builds a castle called Camelot. Lancelot then gets assigned to escort Guinevere to her wedding to Arthur. He admits that he's in love with Guinevere, but his loyalty to Arthur outweighs his love for her, at least, for now. During the wedding, Arthur's half-sister, Morgana, appears and reveals herself to Merlin as a sorceress. Merlin reluctantly agrees to teach her a few things about magic. Lancelot later brings Percival, who tried to attack him in the wilderness, back to Camelot in order to train him to become a brave and noble knight. During a feast, Morgana bewitches one of Arthur's knights named Gawain, who is played by Liam Neeson, to accuse Guinevere of betraying the king. This ultimately leads to a duel, but since Arthur is the king, he says that he is not allowed to fight because he must uphold the law and justice of the land. He then requests that Lancelot stand in his stead during the duel. When Lancelot refuses to show up, Percival jumps in to try and fight Gawain, but at the very last minute, Lancelot arrives. He then ultimately defeats Gawain, but decides to spare his life. Guinevere, so infatuated by this act of braveness from Lancelot, follows him into the woods and they make hanky-panky. Arthur finds out via Merlin that Lancelot has officially betrayed him, and he finds them asleep in the woods and thrusts Excalibur in between them while they lie asleep, thus making the land unstable yet again. Meanwhile, Morgana traps Merlin in some sort of crystal trap type situation and steals his charm of making. Morgana then impersonates Guinevere and seduces Arthur into having sex with her. A little incestual if you ask me. She later gives birth to a son named Mordred, who infects the land with a plague after being born, and somehow he is able to cast a bolt of lightning which strikes and injures Arthur gravely. A severely injured and very depressed Arthur then sends the Knights of the Round Table out to search for the Holy Grail, in hopes that it might heal him and in turn the land. A ton of the Knights of the Round Table die at the hands of Morgana, but Percival is able to resist her and sneak away barely. Mordred magically becomes an adult, which he then gets this really sick suit of golden armor. Like, check this out, pretty sweet. In addition to that, no man-made weapon can pierce his armor, so it's kind of overpowered. Mordred then demands that Arthur gives up his crown, but Arthur said the only thing that he can give him is a father's love. Mordred doesn't want that. Percival, on his journey back to Camelot, gets attacked by Lancelot and some villagers, and almost drowns to death. But that in turn allows him to get the Holy Grail. He immediately brings the Grail back to Arthur, and Arthur drinks from it, which allows him to heal, and he arises ready to go fuck Mordred's shit up. Before the big battle, Arthur finds Guinevere, now who is acting as a nun, and they forgive each other. She also gives him back Excalibur, which she kept for all of these years. Merlin then speaks to Arthur one last time and gives him a pretty cool jump scare. After scaring the shit out of Arthur, he then goes to attack Morgana where she lives and tricks her into using the Charm of Making, which depletes her power and turns her from the gorgeous woman that she is into an old decrepit woman. It also creates this really thick fog, which makes visibility very low. Mordred then finds his mom as the old scary woman and kills her, which I don't blame him one bit for, because if you know anything about this channel, there's nothing scarier than an old person. Arthur and his men surprise attack Mordred and his army utilizing the fog. Lancelot then joins the fight and dies as a true knight. At the end of the battle, the only people left alive are Arthur, Percival, and Mordred. Mordred fatally wounds Arthur, running him through with a spear. But Arthur slides down the spear in a fucking sick-ass shot where he just doesn't give a shit about hurting himself and then stabs his inbred son through the heart with Excalibur. It's able to pierce through his armor because Excalibur is not a man-made weapon. Arthur then sends Percival to throw Excalibur into the nearest body of water, knowing that the sword will only rise again for a worthy king. The Lady of the Lake's hand arises from the depths and catches this sword as it's thrown into the water. Percival then sees Arthur as he is on board a boat headed toward Avalon. Now I know what you're thinking. Holy shit, that was a long summary, and it's true, it was. But this movie covers a ton of ground in a pretty short amount of time, and I feel like it does so in a really, really tasteful way. But if you have not gotten a chance to sit down and watch this movie, again, I'm going to reiterate, you need to watch it. It is a masterpiece. One of the many strengths of this film is its incredible cast. Nigel Terry's portrayal of Arthur throughout his life is fantastic. We see him grow from a naive squire to a withered and broken king. He plays each era of Arthur's life perfectly. His career didn't explode as much as the next actor we'll talk about, but he did stay busy with bit parts until his death in 2015. He is most known for his role as Arthur. And man, hell yeah. This movie would not have worked without this performance. Helen Mirren's Morgana is such a nuanced portrayal of a villain. Well, until the third act where she goes full evil and chews up scenery like it's no one's business. She gives a fantastic performance that propelled her further into stardom. Nicol Williamson's portrayal of Merlin isn't what modern audiences would expect. Sometimes he gives off a Gandalf or Dumbledore type vibe, and others he gives off a golem running around like a little gremlin vibe, which, fun fact, is very close to the original source material. The part of Merlin was offered to a lot of different actors before it settled on Williamson, including Max von Sydow, Sir Sean Connery, Lee Marvin, and Donald Sutherland, who Borman really wanted. Another fun tidbit from this film is that Helen Mirren and Nicol Williamson previously worked together on a stage adaptation of Macbeth, and they hated each other and did not want to work on this project together, or one another would enhance their performances. And yeah, it benefited the film greatly. I can't believe he convinced them to do it in the first place, though. Nicholas Clay's Lancelot is beautiful. What a beautiful man. He's so smug in the best way, and the way the action is shot really highlights that this is a man that is the perfect knight in every way. I think Cherie Lungi's Guinevere is a layered portrayal of the character. Instead of being this one-note evil wife archetype who cheats on her husband, the king, she is the saddest character in the film. She's torn between two men, and Lungi's performance shows that Guinevere is filled with sorrow and regret up until Arthur gives her forgiveness. Also, it's very funny to see leading men like Patrick Stewart and Liam Neeson having such small roles in this movie. It was so early in their careers, and although they're on the screen for a limited time, they do stand out quite a bit. Now let's talk a little bit about the release, the reception, and the legacy that this has left. Excalibur was the #1 film in the United States during its opening weekend, and grossed $35 million in the box office in the United States and Canada. The reception of the movie was mixed. Audiences seemed to love the movie, whereas critics maybe wanted something a little bit more. And to those critics I say, you're flat out wrong. As far as awards go, the British Academy of Film Awards nominated it for the best costume design, and each piece of armor is handcrafted to match the vibe of the character that's wearing it. I mean, Mordred's gold suit, Arthur has like this crazy neck brace situation, and Lancelot even has like fluffy cuffling arms around his elbows. It's so impressive. And the way that the lighting and everything reflects off it just adds so much like romanticism to the overall shots that are in this movie. Excalibur was also nominated for Best Cinematography, which honestly, I think that this holds up super, super well. A majority of any fantasy project that you see definitely takes a lot of inspiration from this, and you can't even match the film quality that's put together on this movie. It's so impressive, and the graininess and the texture and the color palettes that are included into this, just chef's kiss. It's a masterpiece, and I wish that there were more movies like this. A few fun facts about the movie. The filming of the opening battle sequence had to be remounted 2 different times because the lighting wasn't right, and it actually caused the original director of photography, Tony Pierce Roberts to have a nervous breakdown, which ultimately led him to get replaced by Alex Thompson, who ended up finishing the film. Also, in addition to that, another complication was that in Ireland it rains a ton, which led to constant shooting delays. Morgana's breastplate in the film is in John Boorman's house. His will states that upon his death, it will be given back to Dame Helen Mirren, which is both weird and funny at the same time. Boorman wanted the movie to focus on the story, not the actors and actresses, so he cast relative unknowns. At the time, only Nicol Williamson was relatively familiar to American moviegoers. The black smoke in Arthur's First Siege on a castle was created by burning tires. It ended up leaving black flakes on a town nearby. So yes, we've been very respectful and thoughtful of the environment. A wholesome fun fact, Helen Mirren and Liam Neeson met during the filming of this movie and started dating for quite a bit of time after. There's an interview of this, so I'll include that link below so you can enjoy some wholesome content before you go back into the depths of hell. If you want to know even more about Excalibur, there's a 2013 movie that's called The Making of Excalibur, Myth into Movie, that talks a lot about what happened on the film set and just kind of a documentary on how they made Excalibur. In closing, this is what movies are really all about. John Boorman was a respected director and writer, and even he had to do this all on his own. And it's just inspiring to know that creativity, it breaks through. Now, this masterpiece has influenced pretty much every single piece of fantasy media that followed it. One of the reasons that I wanted to make this video is if you scroll on the timeline, there's a lot of AI images and videos that are coming out that directly rip off this beautiful film. The really funny thing is, they look horrible. They can't even mirror a film that was made 50 years ago almost. So my plea to you today is, watch this movie. Watch other movies that have inspired newer movies. And take some time to appreciate what got us here. And maybe, just maybe, might actually support some new artists coming up with something new and innovative. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know if you want to see some more Arthurian content on this channel. While John and I were making this video, we both realized that we love any and all King Arthur shit and would love to talk more about it. I guess it depends on how this video does, but we really hope it does well. That way we can justify spending even more hours than we already have talking about this topic. And if you don't mind, give us a like, subscribe. We got some bills to pay, man.